I gotta be honest, guys. I don't think the Commanders know how branding works. Welcome, everybody, to JG9 News. We talk all things NFL all the time. I'm Jared Gamer 9, representing the 904 from the 602. And today, we are talking about this team behind me right here, the Washington Commanders, as what could be the final naming rights partner for their stadium before they hopefully move into a better venue in the 2030s, God willing. They have gotten a new naming rights partner for Commanders Field, formerly FedEx Field, but they dropped out, and it's no longer FedEx Field. It was Commanders Field for a few months, including the Sunday Night Football game against the New England Patriots in the preseason that we saw a few days ago. But now we are looking at a new stadium, Northwest Stadium, as Northwest Federal Credit Union has bought the naming rights to the venue. It seems like it's an $8 million deal per year for 8 years, which is a pretty substantial amount, I'm not going to lie. For a venue that doesn't get a whole lot of concerts, doesn't get a lot of outdoor events besides Commanders games, and for a venue that is considered one of the worst in football, the fact that the Commanders actually got $8 million per year, which is more than what FedEx was paying supposedly on an annual basis, is very, very good. And on top of that, it allows for the Commanders to open up a new venue if they can get one before the naming rights deal expires. So the deal goes until the end of 2031, but let's say the Commanders get a new stadium in 2029 or 2030, they're not precluded from doing so as a result of this deal. It's a very friendly deal for the Commanders, and I got to give Josh Harris and everyone involved in the front office a lot of credit for this. I looked at the press release. The press release seems pretty standard. Nothing too crazy about that. It wasn't like the Cardinals Casitas press release where I'm like, wait a sec, that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense with what they're saying. But you can see what Northwest Federal Credit Union President and CEO Jeff Bentley says. Northwest is thrilled to continue building on the great work we have achieved alongside with the Commanders. With a combined history of nearly 170 years in the D.C. metro area, this expanded partnership was an amazing alignment of our values to enrich the local community. It is an honor to be able to welcome everyone to Northwest Stadium and introduce the inspiring initiatives that this collaboration represents. Together, we look forward to ensuring that Northwest Stadium is an impactful place where we rally together over a common love of football, giving back to the community, and creating memorable experiences that last a lifetime. And the partnership makes sense because NFCU was already a partner with the Commanders and other stuff, and they're local to the DMV area, so no problem with that whatsoever. And it seems like there are going to be some added benefits to people who are with NFCU in terms of discounts and exclusive merchandise. It seems like it's a good partnership on paper. So why do I say that they have no idea how branding works and they botched the stadium deal? Why do I say that? If it seems to be good, it seems to be a partnership that makes sense, why do I say that? Because the name is Northwest Stadium. The name is absolutely terrible. It's brand confusion galore. You say there's a team called Washington and they play at Northwest Stadium, you assume it's Washington State because that's in the Northwest, not in D.C. for an East Coast team. The brand confusion is all off with that, especially because the distance, if you're going directions between Landover and Washington, D.C., or vice versa, it's not Northwest. It's not Northwest at all. Northwest is such a very generic name that no one knows what the heck it means. You have to know that it means Northwest Federal Credit Union. The name doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and it will lead to brand confusion, and I will show you exactly what I mean as we go to this screen recording. All right, so this is what I wanted to show you guys in terms of how bad this is from a branding perspective and how they really didn't think the name of this stadium through and why it might be the worst named stadium in the NFL. So I opened up a brand new Google account. This account I've never used before. It's completely new, so there's no search history whatsoever. So this is what anyone will get on Google when they type these things in. So let's just type in a regular stadium just to see what the heck happens. If I type in MetLife Stadium, sure enough, no surprises, MetLife Stadium pops up because that makes sense. That's the name of the stadium. If I type in something like, I don't know, Lucas Oil Stadium, you're going to see once again, that's what pops up on Google. Now, let's type in the Commander Stadium. Let's type in Northwest Stadium. Let's see, the first thing that pops up, oh, it's a high school stadium in Dallas. It's a high school stadium in Dallas. I love the reviews here. It is a full turf field with bleachers for people to sit on. 5 stars. I'm sure that the standards for this have to be so low. Bleachers for people to sit on. I would hope that people could sit on the bleachers. I would hope they're not just for show. 4 stars. The staff wasn't very pleasant. They don't let you bring food or water in, but still 4 stars. I don't know what her standards are. If that's 4 stars, like, that's crazy. But Northwest Stadium, you type that in, it takes you to a high school stadium in Dallas. Let's click Google Maps just to make sure. Oh, yeah, it takes you to a stadium in Dallas. This is very clearly not where the Commanders play, so they did not think that one through with a simple Google search. They did not think that one through at all. But okay, maybe the company. Maybe people look at Northwest Stadium and they're like, oh, wait a sec. What about the company? The company Northwest, or who's the one sponsoring the stadium? What does Northwest mean? So I'm going to type in Northwest. And let's see what pops up. Northwest Bank is a bank headquartered in Warren, Pennsylvania, the leading subsidiary of Northwest Bank Shares, a bank holding company that operates in Western Pennsylvania, Western New York, Northeast Ohio, Appalachian Ohio, and Indiana. That's not the bank. That's not the company. That's not the credit union that is sponsoring the new Commanders Stadium, or not the new Commanders Stadium, but the stadium with the new name that the Commanders have. That's not the company. That's a completely different company. The company that you want is Northwest Federal. So why the heck would you name the stadium Northwest Stadium if when people type in Northwest, they get that, and if people type in Northwest Stadium, they get a completely different stadium? It doesn't make any sense. You're not getting good brand recognition whatsoever with this. By the company perspective, by the team perspective, it's just confusion galore upon confusion galore. It's just baffling to me. It's really baffling. Here's the crazy part to me with the Commanders. Why couldn't you just call it Northwest Federal Stadium? Just call it Northwest Federal Stadium, and everyone knows what you're talking about. Northwest Federal, you're like, oh, that's a company. Northwest, you have no idea what that company is. You don't know if that's even a company. And at least there's no confusion in terms of where they play. You're not thinking they play in the Northwest. On top of that, Federal sounds cool. Federal just sounds really cool. It ties into the D.C. area well. Look, there was a USFL team back in the days named the Washington Federals. Federal definition involves the government. The Federalist Papers, they were a big part of American history. They are what helped convince people that we should secede from Great Britain and declare independence, which led to the founding of this country, and the capital of this country is Washington, D.C. There's no reason that you couldn't call it that instead. There is no reason that you couldn't call the venue Northwest Federal Stadium. That way everyone knows what company is sponsoring your venue, and there's no brand confusion in terms of the direction and in terms of what the company actually does. Because right now, the name just doesn't make any sense whatsoever, and I will show you again why, if you call it Northwest Federal Stadium, it would make a whole lot of sense and would be way more beneficial to both parties involved. And just to once again show you guys how bad of a deal this is and why the name makes no sense whatsoever, again, I'm going back to this Google account that I've not used before this video, and if I type in Northwest Federal Stadium, let's see what pops up. Oh, the stadium for the Commanders. The stadium for the Commanders pops up when I type in Northwest Federal Stadium, but you have to know that Northwest Federal is the one that's sponsoring the venue. So why didn't they just call it Northwest Federal Stadium? It doesn't seem to make any sense why they would call it Northwest Stadium versus Northwest Federal Stadium when that makes you more aware of what the company is, what the brand is, and it actually takes you to, the right freaking venue on Google. So yeah, the Commanders really, really stink at branding. We saw what happened with the Commanders' name, and not a lot of people seem to like that one, and a lot of people abbreviate it to the commies because every name that is 3 syllables, people try and make it 1 or 2 syllables, so they didn't see that one coming after a long, extensive process, and the branding stinks for the Commanders, and now they're in trouble with this Northwest Stadium deal with the branding because the branding is just not that good. Again, no problem with getting the naming rights, obviously. No problem with getting a deal. Obviously, you need money, and the more money you can get as a team, the merrier, especially for $8 million a year for the naming rights to the worst venue in the NFL. But the name itself, just add Federal to it. I'm not making this video. Add Federal to it, and you're totally fine. But anytime you have a stadium that takes you to Dallas, and where people think it's in Washington State, and where no one knows what the company is, to the point where if you type in Northwest on Google, it takes you to a completely different company that is not serving the DMV area, you screwed up. You screwed up. There's no other way to say it. You screwed up badly. But what are your thoughts on Northwest Stadium? Do you think that this is a good name? Do you think it's a bad name? Do you think it should be called Northwest Federal Stadium, something else, NFCU Stadium? What do you think the same should be called? What do you rate NFCU Stadium, or Northwest Stadium, I should say. What do you rate that stadium among the best or the worst venues in the NFL? Do you think the Commanders are going to get a new stadium anytime soon? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. And that is going to do it for this episode of JJ9 News. Be sure you like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check my main channel, Jaguar9, where we talk all things NFL history all the time. Until next time, this is Jaguar9 signing off. And as always, go Jags.